You ever feel like you just can't keep up with everything and struggle to be on top of it all? You're reading the books and listening to experts, but still feel overwhelmed and like you don't know what to do. Triggers get triggered, and it takes every ounce of you to keep going. Well, you're in the right place because we're going to talk about what happens when you feel overwhelmed and why you need willpower towards some of your choices. You will also learn the 5 keys that take you from running on willpower to running on autopilot. We will learn how conflict arises in our decision making and why conflict, willpower, and trauma live together. If you want to lead your own life, be intelligent about your emotions, and know what's happening inside your body when you're making a decision, we're going to cover all of that and more. Before, though, we can do any of that, we have to understand that what happens in our body when we let others decide for us. We need to look at that. Because when I was young, I thought asking others for advice was the most important thing. That getting outside voices of reason was a must, and to get as many of them as you can. Until I learned more deeply about the influence others can have on us. We're not talking about research or therapy. It makes sense to be informed from aces in their places. What we're talking about is asking 5 people for advice and feeling unsure afterwards. And when we do this, we can end up second guessing our own decisions that we've made. And so, what's the result of this? Well, we begin to doubt our decisions. And the easiest way to lose trust in yourself is to doubt your decisions. And this is where we stop here and really understand that when you start second guessing yourself, something strange happens. We find it harder to make decisions, and our skill level often goes down. If we are constantly seeking more information before making a decision, it is the biggest mistake we can make. How many times have you had a brilliant idea, taken it to a friend, and left feeling absolutely confused and upset afterwards? Now, I'm not saying that the market research isn't a great thing and that you go out there and you talk to people about your idea. But if you're asking lots and lots of people, we end up doubting our decisions. And this also includes what we hear online or from our beloved chatbots. They are so good at influencing us in all completely different directions. So let's take a look at this from a neurological perspective. Decisions are very literal changes in our neural activity. So what happens when you make a decision is the first barrier it passes through is a point of decision making. It's a this or that choice. The conflict between is what we're interested in. See, every time we face a decision, we are facing conflicting actions. Focus on the word conflicting here. To fully grasp this, we need to understand the word conflict because most of us think of arguments when we hear the word conflict. But the definition also includes the conflict that we have with ourselves. If we look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition for conflict is when it comes to internal conflict, is a mental struggle resulting from incompatible and opposing needs, wishes, and desires from our external and internal demands. So we're going to look at how to make better decisions and feel more in control of them. Decision making is one of the skills we must all develop. Unlike artistic or athletic skills, when it comes to skills, decision making is on top. So now let's look at the 5 keys to smoother decisions on autopilot. The first 3 keys are the keys to ourselves. We cannot be on autopilot if we are fighting ourselves. When we are hungry, bored, or chasing passions, underneath our willpower is our internal conflict. This is why when we use these keys, the very first step is to decide which way you will turn. So the first key, number 1, is turn. Say you've got dishes to do and they're piling up in the sink and all you want to do is watch a movie. The key is in the lock. Turn one way and you're sitting on the couch watching a movie. Turn the other way and your hands are in the sink and your body uses willpower to select the harder option. Dr. K, or Dr. Alok Kanagia, blew my mind when he explained this exceptionally well in his interview with Diary of a CEO Stephen Bartlett. Take a look.
People don't realize the part of our brain that exerts willpower has something to do with this part of our brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. The anterior cingulate cortex is a piece of where willpower comes from, but it is also the part of our brain that monitors conflict. So willpower and monitoring a conflict are actually technically the same thing. The same part of the brain activates. And if you pay attention to your own internal experience, what you'll realize is anytime you're using willpower, there's an internal struggle that you are paying attention to.
So the next time you sense yourself using willpower, inside is an internal conflict or conflicting desires. Here is an example. If someone desired a different job but remained in their current one, they would need willpower to get through each day. This is because their internal conflict stems from hating their job, and their willpower is used to manage bills while they become aware of new opportunities. So the same brain region that is detecting conflict directly links to our awareness and our self-control. So if we break this down, let's say you have been eating healthy and then you want to eat fried chicken. This is a slippery slope to eating fried chicken more often because it feeds the unhealthy decisions. Our brains will lean towards the fried chicken, though we probably know we shouldn't. It's the key wanting to turn one way while you're trying to force it the other way. So the biggest thing here is awareness. If we lose the awareness, you also lose the willpower too, which is exactly why we can spend 4 hours of doom scrolling and it can happen without us even noticing. Because we naturally turn towards the easier option, the easier decision, or at least the ones we have fed. Before we get to the second key, we must understand our emotions work a little bit differently. It is not about choosing a way to turn the key. It's more about checking what state you're in before you open the door. A traumatic event brings a whole other level to this. Researchers studying PTSD found that trauma rewires the brain. This is why we can see circuits literally move out and make new pathways that become on high alert, constantly checking for what's going on, bringing a new type of awareness, the alert state of awareness. Which brings us up to key number 2, detecting our settings. When something painful, overwhelming, or traumatic happens, the brain starts scanning the world, looking for anything that resembles that experience. Our high alert awareness is like a detector stuck on the most sensitive setting. Now, if that was a smoke detector, the alarm is not just focusing on the threat of fire anymore. It reacts to the stove, the sunlight coming through the window, or even the smell of cooking 3 houses away. So as we approach higher levels of internal conflict, especially the ones tied to our emotions, it's no longer a simple this or that conflict anymore. It's more of a setting that performs its intended function. Trauma is not only an alert, it installs an internal program. Say you've been on a slow climb out of a hole you've been in for years. Eventually, you'll reach a point where you feel good. You'll have a day where you feel good. And instead of staying there, we can end up feeling guilty for feeling okay. It won't last, so what's the point of getting attached? But the conflict isn't a choice of a good day versus a bad day. It's not a good day, bad day decision. Instead, it's about a system that's more comfortable with a baseline of misery than it is with happiness. And psychologist Dr. Gay Hendricks calls it the upper limit problem. You have a thermostat for how good you are willing to let yourself feel. So once we cross above that setting and we're feeling a little bit happier, the setting registers, or the system rather, our nervous system registers a conflict. It's no longer a decision about making a choice as we know it. It becomes a decision about a physical state or identity. We don't want to let go of the things that have made us who we are today. So we're going to stop here and understand that if you understand this part really well, you can become aware of not just your internal conflict, but the settings in which you are operating from. When you enter a room, what are those settings? When you have something good happen to you, can you allow yourself to go to a newer level of happiness? So, this is not to be taken lightly, though. It's not a positive love light energy. Instead, it's how many people have you heard invest in personal development and are still miserable? Surely that's got to be something that is a curiosity of some of us. But if we hear our internal conflicts and refuse to change the setting, this is why throwing money at it won't help, because it's up to us to change the internal settings with this key, which is to detect your settings. And the only way we can do that is if we listen, which gets us to the third key, which is to understand. We hear so often to listen to understand, but are we ever doing that with ourselves? So, key number 3, understand. This is when we know that we can communicate with others. It's easy to open your ears and listen. But how does your own body communicate with you? We must listen to what is happening in the mind. So, how do you do this? Well, Dr. K or Dr. Alok Kanajia recommends sitting in a room for an hour, staring at a wall, letting the charge out of your thoughts. And if you don't have 1 hour, look at all the times you are occupied. And before I get into that, I would like to say that I have actually trialed this 1 hour. And what came up was really interesting. If you give yourself time with yourself, just nothing, no distractions, and just sit there, I found that I was quite surprised about the thoughts that were in there, but I was actually able to hear them. So I would highly recommend doing this more regularly. And that's something I'm going to put in my practice, is how to hear the thoughts that are coming through, because it's not about fighting ourselves. So where in your day are you fully available to yourself without something occupying that time? For most of us, that time is 0. Have a look at your hands more often and realize there is a device attached to them, from stopping you from hearing what's actually going on internally. It's about letting the energy drain away instead of fueling it with our distractions, which can be hard to do. So, what are the consequences of ignoring ourselves and taking nothing away from this? It can be useful to think of the body as a whole integrated system. The mind isn't floating above the body. It's an expression of what the brain, body, and nervous system is up to as it interacts with the environment. It shows up outwardly. Our outer world reflects all. Emotions and internal conflicts show up in every environment you are in. You see this when you meet with people and you know something's not quite right, something's not being said, or it feels off, or they may seem sadder than usual. Now that we have a setting for how much emotional energy we'll allow ourselves to feel because of the upper limit problem, we can now understand how to use these keys to our advantage. Keys 4 and 5 allow us to go places that blow the roof off that limit. Key number 4 is to get practical. You must learn to be practical. Ignoring our instincts and prioritizing everyone else's advice is not practical. Remember back to the definition of conflict. Well, the mental struggle between opposing needs and demands is exactly why what's underneath this is our desire to be in control. And we want to handle our emotions better. We want to do better. And to do that, we need to see life more practically, through a lens I urge you to understand. Practicality is the stable measure of action. Practice to do. So be practical with yourself. Life could actually be a lot smoother. Knowing ourselves gives us the opportunity to understand ourselves. If you don't allow yourself to understand the internal conflict or the settings you have permanently been on, then what happens? You never learn to be practical and identify the willpower's driving underneath. So if you know you want to make healthier decisions, that knowing is the awareness. So being practical means understanding the willpower present in the situation. And better yet, going and looking for it. Because when we look for it, we bring awareness to it. And we can use that awareness, and it allows us to see the conflict and choose to strengthen the right neural pathway. Easier said than done, right? Well, not really. There is something that the 1% know a lot about, and that is how to automate their decisions. Which brings us to the last key, the fifth key, automate. When you automate your decisions, you remove some of them. Internal conflicts require you to make a decision. But what if we could automate more of our decisions? Because this is where this key makes a massive difference. If we think about automated decisions, we're talking about the settings in our environment. Take, for example, meal prep. Meal prep allows you to take away the decision of what am I going to eat. But if the meals taste like crap, there's an internal conflict saying, I do not want to eat that. But if you work on the automation of it, you would find meals that you like. Incorporate a cheat day. Do whatever supports your decision. Then you give your neural pathways more attention to turn in the right direction. So if we take this understanding and apply it to our environment, that's why we have clean houses. The ultimate clean house is one that you can move and operate in. But let's say that it's cluttered everywhere. Then our ability to make automatic decisions is limited. So the more automated our decisions, the less internal conflict we have. And I wish I knew this sooner, because life is full of decisions. Life will constantly throw decisions at us. But training yourself to take some of these decisions and turn them onto autopilot helps you use less willpower and cuts down the mental frustration. To do this, we must listen to the person who is with you every single day. And that person is you and only you. It's the only way to feel in control in a world that is creating algorithms for our derailment, which is something that concerns me greatly. If you look at what makes us feel less in control, it starts with our phones. When life's easier, we're more mindful and deal with our emotions with more conscious input. If you are here, it means that you are doing everything to place yourself at the driver's wheel again. So sit with the storm until it runs out of steam. And imagine if this time next year you had all of those 5 keys working for you, because you don't need a 6th key. You need to understand before you act. And that only comes from noticing what's actually going on first, inside yourself. Thank you for watching. I hope that you use these 5 keys to better understand yourself and automate yourself to more success. I'll see you in the next one.